G'day, guys, and welcome to the Centre Bounce. Yes, you saw it in the preseason. I did predict that was going to happen. We did say in the preseason that there's a chance this could happen again. I said it in my team review. It's finally here, a mid-season review. We are joined back once again with JD, Jackson Davey. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It is good to be back to talk some Essendon with the bye just going past. May as well fill the airways with some Essendon content, and I think it's a really good time for us to kind of reflect on the season so far, look back at what our preseason predictions were. I can't speak tonight, and just see is Essendon tracking the way we thought? What's surprised us both positively and negatively? What we're comfortable with, what we'd like to see more of, and go from there. Put a stake in the ground and keep tracking the team as it goes through its progression under Brad Scott.
Yeah, 100%. We didn't have to worry about any wins or losses. We have been coming off a couple of losses, but it's not so much the fact of who we've played. I think it's a bit, as we spoke about in the preseason, a lot of it is going to be how we play, how we develop, what steps we take under year 2 of Brad Scott. And I think it's fair to say that neither of us thought that we'd be sitting halfway through the season at the bye round, coming off the bye round, with us sitting 4th on the ladder, ladies and gentlemen. We are number 4. I know the fans are absolutely sick to death of me raving about us being top 4, but it's a fact. Look at the ladder, open up your AFL app or your website, and we're sitting right there. So
yep. Second last week, and look, with Pies on the bye this week was a chance we go back past them again. So who knows? I think, Sydney and Carlton, I both believe will finish ahead of us. But beyond that, really, top 4 is not out of the realm of possibility with the draw that we have on the run home. And it's going to be very competitive. We're definitely no guarantee or anything like that. But there's a chance we actually end up in a top 4, which would be insane, because then we get to bottle 2 finals rather than 1 this year.
Especially if we finish 4th and we have to travel up to Sydney to play Sydney over there. No one's getting Sydney over there.
At least I get to go to it in person then.
Oh, you were in person at the last Sydney game, because you're up there. I'm pretty sure you live up in New South Wales, don't you?
Yeah, I do now. Yep.
We managed to crack 100 points on them last time. Hopefully this time we can do that, but keep them to under 100 points. So good luck to anyone trying to do that at the SCG. They are absolutely flying. But look, I think we are too. As you said, the Collingwood Magpies have a game up on us. They have their bye. We've got the Eagles. We can jump back over them. The percentage, don't look too deeply into that. But, I mean, look at Collingwood's. It's not that much better than ours. Carlton's, again, not that much better than ours either. So, if we can just tidy it up a little bit here and there, get a few more wins, a nice little percentage booster against the Eagles will go a long way. And that draw against Collingwood is holding us in good stead, I think.
I mean, I've kind of said it when the draw happened. I felt like we should have won that game, and we were definitely in a position to win. But the draw, with our percentage being the way it is not the worst thing as well, because it basically removes the relevance of the draw as a tiebreaker. There, you just the draw is as good as a win for us, because we're never going to win the tiebreaker on percentage. So it's fine. Yeah, we're okay with that.
Exactly. And we've beaten some pretty good teams along the way so far to get to this point. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, who are you beaten? Look, a win against the Hawks all of a sudden looks really good now. In recent weeks, the Hawks are beating a lot of opposition. The Giants, you can never discount the Giants. The Dogs on their day, they smashed Fremantle last week. So, you never really know. So you just bank in the points, bank in the wins, because nothing is guaranteed. And as you say, that draw with the Pies as good as a win. So it's definitely been, very positive thus far. And I know neither of us were overly optimistic about what was going to happen this year. But, definitely to this point, it's been a massive thumbs up. We'd be absolutely kidding ourselves if we said we're disappointed with where we're at this point.
No. I mean, if you told me that coming out of the bye we'd be 4th on the ladder, I would have told you that you're pulling my leg. It's possible you're pulling my leg, and that would only make sense if it predates a massive fall off in the second half of the year, which we've seen over the last decade for Essendon. So I don't know. I think we'll continue to play our roles as we did in the preseason, which was the naive, some might say, but maybe overly optimistic, glass half full Bomber fan. And I am the jaded, been around following too long, realistic, maybe quite pessimistic actually, and can't enjoy any of this. I think that's probably been the hardest part of me, is that
Yeah.
look, we got beaten up pretty heavily early on in the year for winning some of these close games, but losing on X score. And I am a big believer in X score. So I know there was from other Essendon people like a fair bit of tongue in cheek around it and mocking it, but I think it's a relevant stat to look at and to as a measure of success and how the team's going. So I really struggled to enjoy even our wins early on, just because the data said that we weren't a very good side. And what's interesting is it's flipped in the last few weeks, where Gold Coast and Carlton we actually both beat pretty handily on X score, but then lost the game. So it's weird because now I'm feeling more positive after 2 losses than I did after like 4 or 5 wins. It's a really weird season to be an Essendon fan, but I am trying to be optimistic around what the last half of the year can bring. And I think it's because we've seen a lot of positives come out of the first however many games played so far. What is it, 13?
Yeah.
13. I should know that.
That's right. Yeah, 13. So yeah, it's definitely been a really, as you say, it's really all about, and that's what we're talking about in the preseason. A lot of it's going to be not just about the results, but it's also the way that we get to the result. And yes, X score. You mentioned that, and I know a lot of people. I was definitely using X score in the last week when all the Carlton supporters going up and about, and I'm just like, all right, just calm it down, right? Look at X score. We should have won. Now, when I did that, I should have known that they're going to flip the X score back on me and say, hey, you should have lost to the Hawks. Now, it's not a bad result because the Hawks are actually a really good team. And I know you highlighted them in the preseason as one of those smoky teams with Sam Mitchell at the helm. And we're seeing it come to fruition right now. But that's the Hawks. We don't care about the Hawks. We care more so about us. And you're right. Things have changed. Things have flipped. And we are definitely playing a style that is a bit more sustainable when it comes to, we're not streaky. We're not relying on these back half, running off halfbacks with Sard and McKenna. We're winning territory and we're getting inside 50s. We're intercepting the ball. We're 3rd and 4th in those statistics, respectively. So we're definitely seeing that the ball is moving our way more than not.
Yeah. It's I think, I mean, I don't know, we're going to go into the pros and cons a little bit more later on. But yeah, the consistency is one of those things that really has spoken to me through this half of the year. And actually, it's probably been the thing that's changed the most under Brad Scott, which is consistent week-to-week efforts. We saw some up and downs in that last year. But I think, this year so far, we've actually been pretty much competitive in every game apart from the Port one, which was a bit of a disaster. But yeah, in other games we've been beaten pretty comprehensively early. We've actually fought our way back in and put on a pretty good show of effort. We never really hang our heads anymore, and that's really pleasing to see. I think back to last year, I was at the GWS game where we got absolutely thumped, right? And Hogan kicked 10 or whatever it was, ridiculous number. The game was over before half time. I don't remember. There's very, very rare that happens actually in modern AFL. And so for us to, actually beat them pretty dominantly this year, I know they're traveling in a rough spot with injuries and stuff, but that was a really pleasing turnaround for me. And I think that moment was kind of like, yeah, I can see that there are some changes. With that said, I thought we were more consistent last year, still inconsistent in patches, but where the wheels fell off was in that last month, where we had a shot to play finals. We didn't make it. We bottled that GWS game. I think who else we lost to? I think we lost to Collingwood pretty badly in the last week. Yeah. And so we're actually the launch pad for both of those sides to be probably the 2 best informed sides during the finals, which is maybe that's why the losses were so bad. They were peaking and we weren't. But that's the thing that we actually got to nail this year as well. It looks more likely than not that we'll play finals if we keep some reasonable form through the back half of the year, especially with the decent fixture. But you actually want to be making sure that you're peaking into that finals and can actually get a win and go deep into September. So it's not like the consistency through the first half, big tick, right? We had one off game, that's fine. You can write that off. But we need to see that again backed up now and us actually peaking at the right time. And that would be, all right, yeah, Scott, you've earned yourself, the next 2 years to do what you want to do, right? I think that's what would be a real big win for me.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's had at least one bad game where they haven't showed up. I mean, Sydney lost to Richmond, and that's their only if Sydney can lose to Richmond, then anything is possible. So, and you're talking about peaking at the right time. Could the Swans themselves be peaking too early? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it time and time again with teams do peak too early. Melbourne last year was the good example
Yep.
where they were undefeated or something after basically around this time of year, and then fell off pretty poorly. And Collingwood was getting mocked for most of last year with X score and regression, which is true, and it has come eventually, but just not last
Mm,
year. And they were able to parlay that into a grand final. So,
correct.
sign me up for that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there was no mention of an Essendon edge when we last spoke in the preseason. There was not. This was a later sort of development. Someone just asked Brad, and he said, "Yeah, we want to play with an edge." And whoever it was in the media who came up with the alliteration of the Essendon edge definitely deserves a pay rise, because that then dominated the media for the next month on end. Uh, can you see us play? Are we playing with a different sort of edge this year under Brad, do you think?
I think this is like long-term cultural change of the club, and I'm not sure it's necessarily under Brad as much as it is under Zach Merritt, which I don't think gets
Yeah.
talked about enough. There was no bigger worry sign for me 4 or 5 years ago, whenever it was, when he got dropped from the leadership group for basically being too tough on
Yeah.
the players, right? And
Yeah.
now I am aware that there are different styles to lead, and not all people respond to the same styles well. But you already had a very like caring, loving, carefree captain in Heppel. You actually need other people around to drive standards on top of that and to get that good balance. And the fact that the players didn't want that showed, in hindsight, it's very obvious, but I thought it was obvious at the time that there was
Mm,
just not that desire for that hard edge that is sometimes required to be at that top level. And there are teams that we can point to now that have, I think, done a really good job of balancing caring for themselves internally and creating a good culture and environment, and even caring for other players on field. But during the 3 hours where you play, actually have that hard nosed edge, go tough at the ball, get under each other's skin, and actually do what's required to win. Playing
yeah,
fair and within the rules, but playing tough.
correct.
And I don't think we're a tough team. I'll just say that. I don't think there are tougher teams than us out there. But compared to where we have been, where people would throw in words like nice to describe us, I think we have made at least a step forward where, um, we have shown more competitiveness, to be tougher, to do the defensive work and efforts. And that is really pleasing as a long suffering fan as well, to see that change, because it is something that, it's not going to win championships in and of itself, but I do think it's a core part of a good winning culture, and it feels
Mm,
like we have improved in that regard. And I actually like the fact that someone came up with Essendon Edge as a thing. I hope they lean into that and they actually, embrace having an edge, and being, elbows out when it comes to playing on the field, but then also being able to be good teammates and good players and fair and all that stuff as well. So I like it as a concept. It's also like a bit of a meme, and it's been fun to laugh about a little bit. But
yeah,
I think there's no bigger thing to point out than when the Parker incident with Shield 2, 3 years
yeah,
ago with the shrugging, right? Like that
yeah,
is embarrassing.
yeah.
As a club, and I think we've done some like faux tough stuff since then. But I feel like that's less faux and more like being ingrained with part of how the players play, and that's a positive step as well.
No, 100% agree with you. Zach Merritt, I've been saying it almost all year that this guy really needs to be in contention for the All Australian captain. Like what he's done at the helm of this club, despite everything that he's gone through, and you see him sit down with Bucks, and the fact that he went away from the club to find out and what hard but effective good leadership is, just goes to show how poor the culture has been in Essendon for a long time. And we were just hoping that you always say that the fish rots at the head, and you'd hope that with all these changes off the field in relation to the board, the CEO, president, all the extra development staff around, it just seems like everything is now starting to really marry up properly in relation to, all right, we have a captain who wants a harder edge, who wants to establish standards. We've got a coach who's hard and wants to establish standards, and people are coming along with him. You got people also in the midfield. I love the addition of Sammy Durham in the midfield. He's just as tough as nails. Go getter. Is he the biggest guy? not necessarily. Is he the tallest guy? No. But he just plays with heart and he flings his body around and he plays with the Essendon edge, that toughness, as does Jai Caldwell. So you don't have these soft players around the ball. You've got these hard-nosed players who love to tackle, love to hit the ball hard, and they make a wonderful trio. I know everyone's talking up, of course, the Sydney boys, Warner, Heaney, and obviously Goulden. They're a bit further on in their development. I feel like if we keep giving these guys, these youngsters, that continued exposure and development in the guts, we could end up with a midfield rotation that is as feared down the track. Not necessarily this year. They're still quite young in terms of their football careers, but Durham and Caldwell have been absolutely immense, especially without Darcy Parish in recent weeks. They've been doing a lot of heavy lifting, and I've loved them for it.
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit one-eyed to compare him to the Swans midfield, but once again, I like your optimism. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll be like they'll look like a very
future.
Yeah, you did say. I said so. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll see that. I mean, I have heard a lot of talk about Durham's only just moved into the midfield. He actually still doesn't realize how good he can be and all that type of stuff. So look, there is potential there, and we've still got young high draft picks that have a chance to develop as well. I hope you're right. I really do, but I'm struggling to see it just a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, we'll keep an eye out for it.
What's wrong with Caldwell? You don't think Caldwell could be? You don't think Caldwell could be another Chad Warner?
No. Caldwell's got some lovely attributes, but what set Warner apart this year is really his goal kicking ability and burst from the midfield. And I think Caldwell is actually better at hitting them inside 50 than actually being the damaging threat himself. So I see them as different players. I also think that Caldwell's got a better defensive side to his game than Warner does.
Yeah, he definitely does. I just think that where the extra development will come in these players is that they're not. I don't think they're quite at that stage where they feel like they can take it upon themselves to be the Chad Warners of the world, where they can burst themselves from the stoppage and then go for goal. I think they're still trying to, feel that to be a good teammate, they do have to do that hit up pass inside 50 rather than taking it upon themselves. So I still feel that we're still quite in the infancy of the Brad Scott era in terms of the instinctive game style of which the top stars play with. I can see the players are thinking rapidly. They're thinking it over time. They understand the structure. They try to do the right thing by the team and try and, keep things predictable to their teammates. I just feel like in time, as they continue to get this exposure and the development to continue playing in the role, they will then, I suppose, have the confidence to be able to start making those judgment calls themselves and be able to hit the scoreboard. And that just gives us some more free-flowing football. I'm just, from a characteristic standpoint, it's still too early, of course, no doubt about it. But one can only hope, I guess, that they can get there. A lot of copium coming from me, hopefully. But I don't think there's much hope when it comes to Ben Mackay. I mean, I think there's nothing hoping there. You can see clear as day that there's been a massive improvement in our key defensive stocks with Ben Mackay in there. He definitely gets a big green tick this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is we finally addressed one of the concerns that we'd had, I think, for a while, which was that we just don't have that big key defender to actually lock down on the best player each week. And we saw ourselves get exposed a number of times last year, whether you look at Hogan, Hawkins, whoever it may be, where just stretched a little bit too thin, trying to use Laverde and Zerk Thatcher with like Ridley as a stopgap to play on some of those mismatches. So really nice to have him in there and to free up Ridley, which we've seen a little bit of so far. We get to hopefully see a little bit more post, in the second half of the year. And I do think that Zerk Thatcher was maybe unfairly hated on. I'd still like to have him there as a long-term second or third key position defensive option. And I think he conceded a lot of goals last year, but he was also playing on players he shouldn't have been playing a lot of last year. We've seen some improvement out of him this year. He's never going to be top line, but I still have love for Zerk Thatcher. But yeah, I think overall Mackay has been a tick. I mean, especially given it was just what salary we gave up for him, really been filled a huge need for us and helped helped solidify the back six, which has really looked good this year. And I mean, it must also be nice for him. He's won now more games at Essendon than he has for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure he's probably pretty pleased with himself too.
Oh, 100%. Playing for the team that he grew up for, Barrett, growing up as well, definitely is a nice, sweet little bonus. Obviously, has he been the best key position defender in the league? No, but we don't need him to be. We just need him to play a role, and it's just going to get better when he and Rids continue to play together, as you say. Look, BZT, much love to him. I would definitely have much preferred if it was BZT on the field as opposed to if it was Laverty, for example. Laverty's a bit of a warrior. We love him to bits, but he is prone to doing some really silly things, I guess. But yeah, so look, much love to BZT, Ben Mackay, big tick, giving up some money. That's all good. Now, Jade Gresham, I've got here as a question mark because it's been a little interesting with him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He started the year on fire, was the number one most improved player in the comp. But nowadays, I don't know. I feel like we're getting more out of Guelphy than we are out of Gresham these days.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, you'd also expect him to draw the more attention each week as well, just given who he is. So maybe a question for you is, what would you have put as a tick mark for Gresham? Like, what are you expecting to see out of him?
More goals, to be honest. I'd appreciate if there were more goals to be kicked. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like our smalls was an issue for us. We needed to have better smalls to be able to hit the scoreboard, but I just feel like we haven't been getting it out of Jai Menzies. Hasn't come along as well. We haven't got the Davey boys out there. I mean, even when we had Alwyn, he really wasn't in the scoreboard much. He was being really mainly used for pressure. Was hoping for more goals at Gresham, I think. If we got more goals at Gresham, as opposed to him being the one kicking inside 50, because I don't think his kicks inside 50 have been very favourable at all. Just watching the games, I feel like I'd much rather him be on the receiving end as opposed to him being the one kicking inside, personally.
Yeah, I'd say he's been a little bit inefficient there. I had a quick look at his career stats kind of compared to this year. And so he's traveling at about, I think, a goal a game for his career. And he's at maybe just under that. I want to say 0.8 goals a game for Essendon so far. Where he has improved, though, is the goal assists. So he's averaging 1 goal assist a game at Essendon, about 0.7 for his career. So he's actually, getting others involved. And I think his score involvements are around average, but he's taking more inside 50s to generate those numbers. So yeah, I think you're right. Like, we probably would have hoped for better than career average Jade Gresham, given that he's about to turn 27, he's 26. So he's getting to that point where he's in the prime of his career and was filling a need for us and hoping that more opportunity would lead to good things. So I think it's probably a fair question mark. I don't think he's been disappointing or a bad recruit, but we want to knock every pick out of the park. And comparing to some of these others, he probably isn't like a clear green light. So not disappointed with it. But yeah, I think it probably speaks to a problem more broadly, which is that we haven't got enough production out of our small forwards again. And yeah, much like yours, hoping that maybe the Davey brothers would be at a point where they're starting to step up a little bit more. And we've seen a bit more of Alwyn this year, and he's done some nice things. But yeah, the production probably is lacking a little bit still there as well.
We even saw Jai Menzies play a bit of half back against Carlton. So it's so we can have Kelly in the forward line. I don't know. It's something weird things happening on the field. But yeah, Gresham, I understand Gresham was always going to be someone who was earmarked as like a high half forward, almost helping at the stoppage and then working his butt off to get to present as an option inside forward 50. I just don't think that the presenting as an option is happening these days. I feel like he's the one being used as the outlet kick, and that's not ideal. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be Merritt. It's supposed to be Martin. It's supposed to be these guys who are kicking the ball in. Even Caldwell, you mentioned him. He's kicks inside 50.
Yeah, he's been decent. Dersma as well when he's fit.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully we can see a bit more from Gresh, a bit more of how he started off the season. Todd Goldstein, he also has got a bit of a question mark over him because it's not that he's been bad. He hasn't been bad. He's actually been pretty okay. He's been pretty decent, I think.
He's been average. I mean, for his age and where he's at in his career,
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is for me probably his last year that he can reasonably play. I mean, I think you might still be able to play him as a backup, but I don't think he can do 23 games as a number one,
No.
and play to a good enough level. I guess the question here is like, why did we bring in Todd Goldstein, right? And it's not for him to be the best ruck in the league. It's to provide the mentorship and the coaching and development for Brian and for Draper. The reality is we probably aren't going to be able to tell off this year alone whether or not that's been successful. That's probably the next couple of years. And, will he interviews with them about the role that he's played and whether it was useful or not? The hard part for us is, though, like, should he be played over some of them? Where Brian, I feel like, would have every right to put his hand up and ask to leave at the end of the year, just
Yeah.
given that he hasn't had the opportunity to play at ones that he's been dominating the VFL for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, Draper's unfortunately had another year interrupted by injury, so it's just really hard to track where he's at as well. Probably for what we paid for him, which wasn't much, like, I don't think it was a bad pickup either, but I also think it's hard to assess whether he's been successful or not, because a lot of what will ultimately make this a good or bad recruit is things that we don't see on field.
Exactly. And if we all of a sudden hear that, Brian does request a trade and all of a sudden this decision becomes a devastating one, he's obviously, he can provide leadership, he can provide tutelage and, learning, giving him his learnings. Geez, I hate that word after all the times I've heard learnings over the years for the Bombers, but, some things you can only learn from experience, but at the same time, does it have to be at the expense of Brian not playing AFL? Like, is Brian really only play one game in the seniors up in Gold Coast and then back to the VFL? Like, is that really what's best for Brian's development? Even with Todd Goldstein around, like, surely Todd can teach him stuff at training. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily come at the expense of AFL experience. So for me, it's the question mark over what we're going to see moving forward. Like, that's crystal ball stuff, really. Xavier Dersma has been wonderful. I was really optimistic about this selection personally. When we first picked him up, I was really happy that we got him across, because we really haven't had great wings for a long time. And he was immense. He was helping out in defense, running lines, hitting the scoreboard, moving forward. I've loved what I saw from him, and when he went out with his injury, it was really devastating to me. I thought we really missed an important player for us.
Spot on. I think it was the Don the Stat guys that I was listening to in the preseason, who I do enjoy their content when I've got time to listen to podcasts, which unfortunately hasn't been enough of the last few months. But I think one of the things they pointed out was just Dersman's ability to be involved in defensive efforts on the wing and then be linked up in the chain going forward. And it was something I kind of had my eye on and looking out for. And you do really notice it with him, his ability. And obviously he's had injuries in the past. So I think he's getting back to fitness and finding some of the form that he had in his junior years. Remembering that, he was alongside Rosie and Butters as the trio, right? So if he ever got back to that level, that'd be outstanding. Probably not going to happen at this point in his career. But with that said, I do think he has proven to be really important to us with just what he can do on the wing. And you can actually kind of see why Brad Scott may have been interested in moving someone like Nick Munn off a wing and not using him in that spot, because what he's looking for our wings to do when it comes to the defensive work rate is not where Nick Martin's strength is. Nick Martin's strength is on the offensive side of the ball, and there are other places you can put him on the field to extract that value while still achieving what you want to structurally out of your wings. I think there's a lot of displeasure with like where Kelly's been playing and using him on a wing and a whole bunch of other stuff. But it's also, I think that's Brad Scott's mold and game plan is looking for these defensive wingers that can run end to end. And Dersma is our best example of that at the moment and can actually do things offensively within that role, which is really pleasant to see. And yeah, definitely, like I think big tick so far out of him. I think Mackay and Dersma are definitely been the best two recruits so far and really important for us. So yeah, I think you've ticked and question mark the best you could.
Thank you very, very much. And we also had a question mark really over, I know in the preseason we're talking about the game plan. What are we going to see? Are we going to see, because the way we played last year wasn't really to our best strengths. I know you mentioned in the preseason that we're playing that slow, possessive game style out of the back half, and that's not, we don't have the cattle to do that. We don't have those great kicks to I suppose, kick through opposition zones. And by and large, that's still the case. We still don't have a lot of great kicks in the side. Again, where Maxwell would be great. So we've changed it up a little bit. We're not looking to try and play off half back more. We're trying to create and try and be a front half team. And we've seen in the past for just about every team outside of Collingwood, it's the front half game that wins flags. It's the front half game, the turnover game, that is going to cause you to have the best chance in finals and win premierships. And to be honest, it's a welcome change. We've finally, are we executing it perfectly? Probably not, but at least we're sort of building it in the right way, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of stats you can look at here. So one that's interesting is like score origin and then score origin differential. So this is effectively looking at, do you score from defensive half, forward half, or center bounces? And then comparing that to your opposition. So if you do most of your scoring from the forward half, but you also give up a lot of that as well, then maybe not necessarily a good thing. But looking at Essendon, so in 2023, our forward half differential for score origin was minus 12 a game. And that was second worst on the ladder. Only so it was worse than North, and the only team that was actually worse than us was West Coast, which was minus 30. And this year we're positive 4, which I think puts us at about 7th overall. And if you look at the teams ahead of us in this stat, it's Sydney, Brisbane, Collingwood, Western Bulldogs, Carlton, GWS. And so it's like, I think this is very, you look at who are the top teams, and a lot of those names fall out of that. And once again, who are the teams at the bottom? North, Richmond, West Coast, Saints, D's. Like, these are the teams that have really been struggling in that stat. So, to your point, like creating those turnovers in the forward half and then trying to score off those, which is what a lot of sides are trying to do, and being able to execute it better than others is important. And I think one thing to look at for like part of how we're doing that is those intercept stats. So we're averaging 70 intercept possessions this year, which I think places us about equal third. I'm trying to find what last year's was, but I think we're once again closer to the bottom half of the ladder when you look at intercept possessions. So once again, another one of those where we've just had a really big improvement, and that is without Ridley playing, who's arguably one of the most important interceptors in our back half. So I think there is still some more upside on that. So we were 67 intercept possessions a game, which had us a bottom 6 or 7 team. So creating more intercepts, especially in the forward zone, and then being able to convert those into scores is the prototypical game, and it relies on tackles, which I think we're still top 2 in the league, and alongside Collingwood and pressure, which I still don't think is necessarily the best element of our games. And there's pockets where we aren't performing well, but it's a noticeable improvement in how we've been playing. And once again, the consistency with this type of brand of football is what we've seen out of Collingwood, right? Like if pressure and that forward half game outnumber is what you're playing, you actually can create fairly good consistency with that and be in a lot of games. So it's all I think positive stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you're right. I think we are second for tackles in the league, and I think we're also like top 4 for tackles inside forward 50, and that is a stat that you would never have heard the Essendon Football Club be able to be featuring that highly in terms of having the ball be in our forward 50 where we're applying pressure, we're trying to create repeat stoppages. It really is a breath of fresh air. And it really just comes down to shot creation, which is ideally from closer to goal. But but also got to be able to capitalize on it. And unfortunately, if you don't and you get a turnover with so much congestion in your front half, it just means that the back half has a lot of space for the opposition to work in. And we saw it perfectly with Carlton. They were able to obviously a bit of thanks to our poor bombing inside forward 50, bit of blindly, bombers by name and by nature. They capitalized on that and were able to go by the other way and cut us up through the middle a little bit. And I think that just goes to show that they're a bit more settled in the way that they play. They're used to the way they play. We're still trying to come to grips with it and navigate the finer nuances of how to play the front half game. And I walked away from that game. Yeah, it was very annoying. It was very disappointing that we got the loss. But to be honest, that sort of game against many others gets the job done. And on, as you say, unexpected scores, we should have beaten Carlton in this game. And so it's hard to walk away feeling overly disappointed that the way we're playing is actually better in this loss than it was at the beginning of the year when we snuck over the line when we shouldn't have.
Yeah, for sure. And like I will say, like, the one down point for me is still when we look at scoring from turnover, which has always been a big weakness of ours. I feel like that has improved in some regards. Like I feel like we see less of the team coming from defensive 50 to forward 50 and doing the full transition end to end. Like, I do feel like we are seeing less of that. But when you look at where score origin is for our opposition, like, both, a lot of it is still from defensive half, so we're still conceding a lot of defensive half scoring, and we're still conceding a lot of scoring off turnover. We're still not amazing on either of those stats. So while it has improved, at least to the eye, I feel like there is still some extra work that can be done on actually making sure that we are stifling scoring from those sources.
Yeah, again, that's I feel like hand in hand with the double-edged nature of the way we play, because we press so aggressively. You'll find that we set up the wall with Ridley and Mackay basically in the middle of the ground. And when the ball gets out the back, they're not the fastest on their feet. We're really relying on the likes of Nick Hind and stuff and Andy McGrath to really do a job in trying to quell the running game. But it's just coming down to, other opposition can probably score a bit more, given the fact, the way that we're overly aggressive at times. And I saw a couple of times where Jaden Laverty just completely leaves Hollins or Durden, whoever it is, completely out the back, just trying to be overly aggressive. It's just, being aggressive is fine. It's just understanding when to be aggressive and where to be aggressive. And I think that just comes with a bit of fine tuning. And of course, we're not the finished product yet. We definitely still have a lot of improvement to go. And that's part of why I think the optimism lies, that we'll fall from the ladder with the upside.
Yeah. Just like one other thing on that though, right? So I think Collingwood was one of the best at, I had the least scoring from turnover last year conceded, right? And part of what they were doing is exactly what you're talking about. So you have more play very aggressively off his man to provide support. And if the support doesn't work, you just get beaten over the back. Now, that worked very effectively last year. It has been less effective this year. And you've actually seen them get opened up in a couple of games where they've made a poor read, or the opposition's kind of manipulated that decision in their favor. And I think that probably does affect us negatively as well, because you're copying last year's game plan to an extent, or learning from it at least, and borrowing good parts from it. But the league has moved on, understood how to adapt and change and counter that a little bit more. It is going to look a little bit worse than the best ever example of that. So I think we've got to keep it evolving as well as the league changes. But I think some improvement in that area, but that's still probably the one thing where I'm going, is there more we could be doing? Is this a personnel thing? Is it a game plan thing? Not entirely sure. I don't have a great answer there.
Yeah, that's true. That's why we're not the coaches. That's all Brad Scott, baby.
We're just the super coaches, baby. Let's go. Let's go. They wouldn't last a day in my shoes, all right? They could not walk a mile. How hard could it be to sit in a box with like 15 other coaches, little laptops, 3 hours players doing most of the work out there? They do not know the blood, sweat, and tears of sitting down and 10 minutes before lockout finding that Simpkins are laid out, and you've got to make a call in the moment, all right? You've just got to rely. They don't know. They don't know what that is. So, look, I'm surprised they haven't come to us for more advice, if I'm being perfectly honest. But that's okay. Sometimes egos get in the way, and these are bridges that can be mended, repaired, and crossed as time comes on. I'm sure it won't be long until they're knocking at our door, Joe.
Dave Barham, Greg Bozzo, there you go. You've heard it. You have heard it right here, straight from the great man's mouth, and not a single lie was spoken there. Very well spoken, mate. So that did catch me by surprise. Perfect timing with that supplication to the Essendon Football Club. That was a very positive surprise. I guess we could go one for one, maybe. I don't know. I haven't really thought about this exactly how we're going to go through it, but I mean, the ladder position is, fourth on ladder, pretty positive surprise. And I know you mentioned before the competitiveness and the consistency, 100%. That's been a major reason why we've been able to play the way we have, even in the losses. Still, there haven't been many losses, but even in the losses, still look pretty good. Apart from Port Adelaide, that's an aberration.
Yeah. And to be honest, I assumed you work at Bunnings. The amount you've talked about ladder position in the last 40 minutes, so I think we can tick that one off too. I feel like we've gone through both the first two positives pretty comprehensively.
No, KD. It's not always not. How often do you see us fourth on the ladder? I wouldn't mind working at Bunnings in this right now. You know what I mean? Walking around like, oh, you want ladders? Oh, I can help you with those. I know what the ladders are.
Fourth rung from the top. Guess what you'll see there?
The bomb brays, the best of bomb brays. You'll see my face as well, just screaming out center field. I do want to talk about a negative. All right.
Yeah.
This role experimentation is mind-boggling, and I don't know why Brad Scott is so adamant on playing Kelly all over the ground.
It's his boy. He needs to find a spot for Kelly because he loves him. And there's something he's doing that he loves, right? Whether it's the defensive stuff, whether it's the coaching, whatever it may be, right? There's something Kelly does that he loves, that he spots and the coaches recognize and admire, that us fans don't, right? And I cannot tell you what it is, other than there's something that Scott sees that us fans on the side don't understand. Because it does feel like he is trying to find a home for him at the moment, where we've got people in the twos that probably deserve a spot. So like I can understand where if it's not working out, you do want to experiment with things and try things and have a plan B. And I actually think that there has been some positives that come out of this, right? So I don't think Nick Martin's move has been a failure whatsoever. That's probably a whole other hour discussion for another time, depending on who the audience is. But we saw last week with Carlton, right? We were struggling in the first half. We trialed Menzies back and Martin forward. And one of the things I think Essendon has been criticised for in the past is actually not having a plan B, not being able to adapt and adjust to what's happening on field. And I feel like Brad Scott's done an okay job of that. So I think, we talk about double edge a lot so far. And I feel like this role experimentation is one of those where I feel like it's had some positives, some negatives. If I scratch the surface here, what I feel like the real negative is like, how is Kelly still getting a game every week? What's he doing that we don't see? Yeah.
No, I don't mind Kelly. If Kelly is playing in the back line as a lockdown defender, he's great. I will not think he took Toby Green to the cleaners when we played against the Giants. Like, he is a very good, very competent lockdown defender, and that's why we brought him across from Adelaide in the first place, to play that role. I don't think his job description, when we were selling the pitch to him to come to Essendon, is that you're going to feature at half forward or on a wing. Like, that's not like
defensive winger.
Defensive winger rotating through half forward whilst also potentially featuring in the back line where you were supposed to be. What's next? He's going to be in the ruck to cover for Goldie, for example, one time. Yeah. I don't know.
Look, his weakness has always been kicking as well, and it feels like some of those roles he's been experimented and exposed that more than otherwise would. I think I can take that as a negative. I feel like that's fair enough. That's one I'd like to see questioned in more detail.
Yeah, 100%. I guess sort of hand in hand with that, because he's not being used to his full potential. His skill set is being, I suppose, diminished, and he's not showing his wares in that role. I think that's the same for Elijah Sardis. Elijah Sardis is being systematically destroyed as a sub. Is this over exaggeration? Is it hyperbole? Look, it might be, but I have not seen a footballer go finish top 5 draft pick, look so likely to miss his foot on a kick. It's ridiculous. He was not this bad.
Josh Ward's in recent memory for mine, but yeah.
He was not this bad when we drafted him. He wasn't.
No, I still remember there were draft profiles that said his kicking was actually one of his better attributes. So I'm like really confused at what happened in the interim.
I know. I know they've been trying to rework his kicking structure and things like that. And then he gets a game, he gets elevated from the VFL because he's smashing it in the VFL. He's getting 30 disposals, 9-10 clearances. You know what I mean? Like, he's just dominating. And then you bring him to AFL as a sub and chuck him out on a wing. Like, it's the worst possible thing you can do to him. And on the wing, your kicking skills just come to the fore. And when you are unable to kick, it just makes you look so much worse. And then all the negative criticism comes his way from the supporters and from the wider public. And that's not fair on him, I feel. I think we're really mismanaging this kid.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you look at the VFL stats in so for round 5 and 7, he had 40 touches and then 32, I want to say. And then we brought him in against North. He played a full game and was just so. But I think the where he's drafted at was effectively like the inside-outside mid player, and we have not used him in that role whatsoever. So I'm pretty worried about his development and where he's heading. And I think starting injured last year actually really hurts that in many ways. But I am confused about why we've thrown some of these other players into the midfield mix or brought them up onto the ball, and then you've got Sardis starting as a sub and suffering. I'd really like to know what they actually see as his long-term position, and would love to hear the argument for why, for why how he's being played achieves that long-term goal and what they're trying to get in it. Now, I can see a need for maybe some more size on him. The lad's still skinny, but we've seen Sheasel and others be able to, and Dacos even, who's on the slender side as well, be able to mix it in the midfield as a young player on ball. Maybe not for whole games, but for at least for extended periods. So I am, I think, worried as well that we actually haven't really played him too much in the position that he was drafted to play or what he showed his best footy as a junior. He seems to be able to still do it at VFL level. I don't want to end up with like a Paddy Dow in our hands where they smash the 2s and then their upside in the 1s is 18 to 22nd on a list. That's an absolute disaster from a top 5 pick that was talked about as a top 3 even at some points, or I think even higher than that. So I think the development is a good question. And if I think back to our original preseason video, like I said, for me, the biggest thing will determine whether we succeed or not this year is developing the youth. And that'll be like whether or not we take a step forward, right? Because we've had players in the past that have had career best years as an older player. But if you've got Reid injured, Cox injured, Perkins not playing, Hobbs not playing, Draper injured, Brian not playing, where's your actual development coming from, right? That's what builds a premiership list. It's these next layer of guys actually improving over their first 50 or 100 games and then complementing your merits.
Exactly.
And so I think on a positive, we actually have seen, Cox be fit and healthy throughout the year and get good opportunity. Jones fit and healthy, getting opportunity. And I'd say they've both taken a step forward, really positive. Reid looked like he was going to do the same, but injured. So Cross, Draper, injured again now, Cross. And then I think, the 2 most confusing for me has been probably Sardis and Hobbs. Hobbs can't get a look in at the moment. And then, Sardis's development seems a bit of a question mark. I'm not going to mention anything on Caddy because I think as a key position forward, you want to give him more time. We actually have people ahead of him at the moment. And it sounds like his development in the 2's been going along well. But yeah, ultimately, I think that's probably the biggest negative for me is I still don't feel like we've got the balance between development and performance right, which I guess is a weird one to say, right? Because on the other hand, we're praising competitiveness position on the ladder, but then criticizing we're not playing younger players, right? And these are trade-offs in general. These are give and take things. But I think just a quick couple of stats here. In 2023, we were the 6th youngest list on average with the fourth most in experience. This year, we're the 6th oldest list with the 6th most experience. So we've really flipped where we are on the ladder position. And so part of that makes me somewhat nervous, right? Is the ladder position and movement up real, or is it just a function of us playing more experienced older guys at the expense of youth and development?
Well, Goldie definitely moves.
Sure. There's always players that will add it up, and like bring in some of these guys like Mackay and Gresham, like all those things added up, right? Like they all add to that. But it does make me question, like, we've seen this mistake from Essendon in the past where we try and top up too early and we actually don't have the cattle coming through. And like, is that the case again? Would be my super pessimistic take. I don't think that's exactly right because, maybe if Reed had played every game so far this year, I'd be like, yeah, it's fine. They've done enough. But I do feel like we're probably missing a development, at least 1 or 2 youngsters that I otherwise would have liked to have seen this year.
Yeah, look, you can develop in the VFL. Elijah's still young. You can just keep him in the VFL, and I'd much rather having a Dylan Shield as a sub. Someone who has experience, someone who has line breaking ability. Has he been killing it in the VFL? No, not really. But I don't think being used as a sub is going to get you any sort of development or even. I mean, we saw Nick Hind. Nick Hind was the sub a few weeks in a row. We were not getting much out of him. He starts to play a full game, and all of a sudden, Nick Hind looks like one of our best players on the field. And it's like, where the hell is this coming from? And people are asking me, Joe, should I trade Nick Hind into my super coach team? And it's just like, there's always next week, mate. He might do something stupid next week. Be careful. You can't trust the form, but it's been ridiculous. So I think the sub rule has a lot to pay for. Has been very bad. And hopefully Elijah just gets a real good run in the VFL, just to rebuild that confidence again, have him actually develop in the twos, and hopefully he can come down the track if we're going to cover an injury, which we've been really good at doing this year. With no Ridley for a lot of the season, we've now lost Draper, we've had no Parrish, we've had no Dersma, and we've probably should have beaten both Gold Coast and Carlton despite having those outs. So I think we've been doing a pretty good job in that department. All right. So we then move to this. So we've had a best 23 that we predicted in the preseason. This is what it was. And like we did last time, we're going to be using the Supercoach website. I did create a second one. I'm not winning Supercoach this year. Don't you worry about it. They can disqualify me. My rank is disgusting. But in this case here, I mean, we had Mackay, Ridley, Redmond, McGrath, Hind, and Reed with Laverty on the bench. I think that back line has been nailed to perfection. Outside of Reed, of course, who was injured. So
yeah, I mean, I think we got the players right. It's just obviously Reed was injured, and I think we talked about like Martin being back there as well. But
right.
I think that's pretty much spot on.
Merritt, Parrish, Marto, Hobbs, Dersma, Durham, Sardis, Caldwell as the midfielders that we've got here. Definitely think Parrish is in our best. I mean, is it a coincidence that as soon as Parrish left the side, our clearance numbers went down?
Nope. I think he's still underrated both by our fans and others more externally. He's not Zach Merritt, right? He's not going to be that level. And the peak that we saw of Parrish was great, but we're not going to get that every game. But I think he's still one of our better players quite easily when he's fit and firing. And yeah, it is, I don't think in my eyes, at least anyway, no surprise that our ability to win stoppage has dropped off with him out of the side.
For sure. Marto, I know you said you've been happy with him, moved to half back. I have been too. And I do like it when Brad decides to pull the trigger and put him as a half forward, like he did against Collingwood on Anzac Day. He was immense there, like he did against Carlton in the third quarter, brought us back and did some incredible things there as well. So Marto, he's just a wonderful player. You can put him anywhere and he'll do well. Hobbs, as you say, it's a bit of a disappointment that he hasn't been coming on as well as we would have hoped. Fingers crossed, we can see a bit more from him in the coming weeks. I think he should be available now for this week. Whether or not he gets a game is a different story. Dersma, I think, should be available this week as well against the Eagles. Will he play? I hope so. I love X in the team. He's been wonderful. We spoke about him. Durham as well. Elijah being a bit of a sub, hopefully not anymore. And Jai Caldwell has been wonderful in the midfield. Love what I've seen from him. He's been a big tick. So all in all, this midfield mix has been has been pretty good for the most part this year.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Goldstein Draper was a working combination early on in the piece. Obviously, Draper went down. Goldie was by himself, and Goldie was, just beaten up, beaten by Sherry, beaten by, who else was he beaten by? He was beaten by basically everyone that we've played against in the last few weeks. De Koning, yeah, that was bad. Nankervis beat him as well. So look, he's old. Like it is what it is.
He turns 36 in a couple of weeks, I think.
I know. You can't expect the world from him. The guy is 36 years old. Like, massive respect, man. Like that's incredible. Like we talked about before. The question is: it better to have him out there, or should we be playing Brian? I personally think at this point we should be playing Brian more. I don't want to lose him. There'll be people knocking on his door offering him big bucks, and I wouldn't begrudge him if he's like, yeah, I'm going. Essendon's not giving me a gig.
No, I mean, I would completely understand if he does that. Hard spot for us too if he does.
Yeah, 100%. Peter Wright was
one of the
wrong.
Players that has been down on production from what we've seen in his best.
I think he was wronged, man, with that suspension.
I didn't love that either as an Essendon fan. I can see why. But I thought the defense that we tried with that was pretty weak, to be honest.
It was terrible.
Yep. Actually, and don't even get me started on the Wiedemann suspension this week. That's the most ridiculous thing ever. How we didn't get that overturned, I will never know. And actually, just while we're on the topic of suspensions, how Butters got off for that hit behind play on Green, but Redmond, we didn't even bother challenging. That our legal team still has got a thing or two to learn because the advice we're taking or the instruction we're giving is subpar.
And then the one that we finally do appeal loses. The Wiedemann one. That is bonkers to me. That is absolutely ridiculous.
I actually haven't seen a decision on that. I'm actually really keen from a MRO watcher perspective on what their logic was. But from my view, the Carlton player illegally attacks the ball. Wiedemann is entitled to defend himself at that point. What are his realistic alternatives apart from have his legs taken out and risk breaking them? He's got to brace for impact somehow. Anyway, let's not get stuck down on that. That was a strange decision.
I don't know why. As soon as you said has the right to defend himself, I instantly thought of Israel for some reason there. Has the right to defend itself. Has the right to defend itself. And then over here, we're looking at our players and we're getting suspended left, right, and center. This is a farce. But Peter Wright, ever since he got suspended, I feel like he hasn't come back the same. I feel like he's getting his hands on the ball, but he's just not marking. He's just dropping him. And for a guy of his size, I'm not sure if it's that he's afraid to be punished again, of being big, of being strong, of playing with an edge. I'm not sure if that's causing him to just not be able to take those marks that he really should be taking. And when his output goes down, our forward line just does not function. Is he just a Marvel Stadium merchant where he can only play good at Marvel? Is that just what he is?
No, I think he's actually just not in the best form. So I don't know if the suspension did take a hit to his confidence or whatever, but yeah, that's one that we're missing. I think the other thing as well is like the forward line. It's partly with what's happened with X score. We were very efficient early in the year, and we've been very inefficient the last couple of games. Hope to see a bit more consistency out of that going forward, and kind of a reversion to the mean, or at least like improving our efficiency from the last month or so, which has not been great.
Yeah, and Lang is again Langford, and again another victim of that. Like he just used to be the most beautiful kicks in front of goal, and now he's missing a lot, which is obviously a bit disappointing. Hopefully, he can recapture that form. Same thing with Stringer. Has Stringer signed the contract under the table without us knowing? Because the way he started the season, compared to what he's playing these days, I swear he signed it and no one's announced it yet.
Yeah. So, so this is the updated best 23 that you're showing here?
No, this is what we went through.
This is the preseason.
Preseason, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I think, most of this was fine. I think we didn't have Kelly in here. That's the big omission. And then Guelphy was the other one, the two.
Yeah.
Probably optimistic that they'd play, more Sardis than what they have.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think this prediction was, reasonable enough.
Correct. Yeah, 100%. I think it was a thing that was perfectly fine. I mean, if I just bring it up here. I mean, how would we update it? So we'll be taking Elijah out, for example.
So I guess once again, it comes down to do you want to present what we see as the best 23 or what we actually think the best 23 will be going forward? Because I think whoever they name this week will almost be there, be the best 23, right? What Hind is one that you've added in now that we probably didn't have at the start either. Hind, we didn't have Hind in the other one, right? So behind,
we did have Hind.
Oh, did we? Oh, good on us.
Yeah.
So then it's really just Guelphy and Kelly that you probably need to find spots for. Hobbs isn't best 22 at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Setters, and then Reed's injured.
Not quite.
Yeah.
Kelly has to play in defense and only in defense. Never in the midfield. If we see Kelly in the midfield, then we know.
You even got Heppel in the side. Heppel's been best 22 all year. So
Heps has been good. I mean, we had that discussion in the preseason. Like, I saw Heps maybe still had something to offer. You thought, look, if we want our team to move forward, probably time for Heps to go. But Heps has been really good this year. He has
been very good. Yeah, I think not having captaincy duties has probably been a big relief, but also his body's right? And this is what he struggled with the last few years. So it's good to see that Heppel's been able to play a really significant role in the team.
Yeah, for sure. And we definitely obviously got to have.
Are you running out of salary cap?
Where's Guelph?
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, you can't afford him. You're at a salary cap. Super coach got you. This is fine.
Essendon players are too expensive, mate. Essendon players are too good. Get around us.
Well, haven't you got 24 selected anyway, though?
You got 6 plus 6, 12, 14 plus 6 is 20. Yeah, got 24 people. So someone's got to go. Everyone here stays. I want Kelly out, personally. I don't want Kelly in the
Draper's injured, so you can take Draper out of the...
Draper's out, true. Yeah. I'd love to play Nick Bryan. Then we can get Guelphy in the team as well. So Goldie, Wright, Langford, Stringer, Gresh, Perkins, Menzies. Menzies keeps his spot. We need a small Jones. Well,
that's an interesting one. I think they probably pay Setterfield over Menzies.
Yeah, if Setterfield is right to go, but who's gonna play small then? So if we're adding in a mid, then that means
you got Guelphy, Gresham, and then you are probably a lighter small. Yeah.
We're short of small. We're short of small.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you drop Kelly, who's not in the side anyway, right? For Setterfield, what have we done here? What is the thing we're not seeing? Is it too many wings?
We've brought Dersma back.
Yeah, and then you've still got Hind, Heppel, Cox. So you've kind of got 4 there. Someone's got to play defense or half forward, or actually Hind probably ends up being sub, maybe.
Yeah, well,
be interesting to see what we do this week.
Well, none of these guys are playing. Caddy's probably not playing. Elijah's probably not playing.
Yeah, Menzies and Davies are the 2 that have got games that are outside chances, but I think I mean, Menzies was good in the time they had forward, but he didn't. Yeah, I don't know. Be interesting to see how we line up this week. Parrish you've got in there, but it actually won't be in the side this week.
Oh, true. That's right. Parrish is injured, so Parrish goes out. Correct.
Yeah, and he would come in for Setterfield most likely.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. So look,
and then
the
so then you can get your extra forward in, right?
Yeah,
you can get
correct.
Yeah.
So the team is looking. The team's looking all right. Is it world beating? Is it going to win the flag? Look, obviously, it just does not appear to be that way. It's too early for us. We are still trying to figure out what our best mix is. We're still experimenting with players all over the ground in different positions. But the style in which we play is doing really well. And I actually do think Draper's back in this week. I think there was an article that said that Draper's ready to ruck. He's been medically cleared. And I think Drapes comes in this week, which will be huge.
Wow, who are we dropping this then? Like it's a forward, probably, right?
It might be a Jones.
I wouldn't want to drop Jones. I think that'd be a big
I
loss.
wouldn't want to drop Jones either.
I think I just want to play one ruck and I'd get rid of Goldie, but I don't think Brad Scott will necessarily do it, right? So, once again, this comes down to what would we play versus what's Brad Scott going to do? Because I think Kelly's still on the side this week.
Yeah, I don't want Kelly on the side. No. So but the fact that we're kicking Kelly out, this is our team. So our team has Goldie out of the side.
Yeah, if Draper's fit, I think Goldie comes out.
If Draper's fit, he comes in. Have Wright be the second ruck. I think he did okay as second ruck against the Conning last week, so that was not too bad. So yeah, Draper, Wright.
Especially with he's been struggling with his forward craft a bit. I think getting him involved up in the ruck is not the worst thing.
Correct. So this is what we would rock with coming into the week. Brad, please listen to us. We're super coaches ourselves, right? As JD mentioned.
If you need a consultant for the selection committee, I know you're trying to keep your numbers small, but look, discretion is on my resume as a special skill. So yeah, please reach out.
There you go. All right. And then, oops, forgive me. Tech things, too many screens at the same time. All right. And then we ended up, what do we see happening from here on out? What are our expectations for the season? Come on, take us away, JD.
I mean, I've been watching videos recently on the history of the Concorde, and when you hit supersonic speed, an improvement like we've seen, there's only one way that finishes. So I'm still... jokes aside, realistically, with the schedule that we've got, I think I'd be very disappointed if we didn't make the 8 from here.
Yep.
And I think the biggest disappointment would actually be if that inconsistency leaked back in over the last month of the year. That is then, I think, points to me 2 years in a row, a bigger issue that we can't run out seasons. We're not mentally there. We're not physically there. That'd be the biggest concern for me. I think finishing top 8 from here is a bare minimum. Continuing to look competitive in every game. Those are the things I would care about the most. And then the cherry on top would be obviously winning a final and getting over that bugbear, so we can just get on and playing footy without that kind of hanging over our heads. So I think that'd be the third thing, but not what I'm basing success on this year.
No. Definitely want to see more of results in terms of the way we play, as opposed to just the final result. The final result, be it what it may, is a byproduct of the steps that we take to get there. If we have more games where we lose against tough opposition like the Blues, but we play well, we put ourselves in a position to win, then that is good enough for me at this stage. Everyone had us maybe in the bottom 6. I reckon from here on out, we can finish 6th, I think. Finish out the season at 6th on the ladder, have a home elimination final at the MCG, have a packed out crowd, will the boys over the line. If it's against an interstate team like the Giants or something, I don't know. Could we get it? I think we could. I reckon we could. We beat the Giants once in Melbourne. We can beat them again. We can do it, JD. We're not playing them over there. It's not going to be Jesse Hogan 2.0. We can do it, man. I'm believing. I am that naive, young, unjaded Essendon supporter. I'm believing in a finals win this year, man.
Don't worry, mate. This is just one more rung on the belt to joining me in the pit of despair. So I love your optimism. Let's lean into it. Go the Dons. Yeah. Hopefully we've got more exciting footy to watch over the back half this year.
100%, man. Thank you once again for coming on. We wanted to keep it a short one, and yet we've still managed to go over an hour. I mean, apologies.
Once you get 2 nuffs on a roll, like, it's hard to stop.
Hard to stop. Thank you so much once again, mate. Where can, obviously, you got your own channel, you're posting, you're still keeping up to date with your fantasy, with your super coach, your trades. Where can all of our wonderful viewers find you, man?
Don't bother. I'm wrapping up shop. But on Twitter at Jackson Davey, if you YouTube my name, you'll find me there as well. That's about the extent of it. Yeah, just weekly Supercoach and fantasy videos. But at this point in the year, we're all done with trades, right? You don't need actually help finishing out and that stuff. Otherwise, yeah, a bit of memes, bit of data on the Twitter feed worth following if you get a chance. And thanks for having me, Joe. Pleasure to be on the Centre Bounce as always. It's a shame Big J isn't here to talk about Essendon as well. I mean, I'm sure he'd have lots of insight to share and add, and wouldn't be jabs at us for the last hour, which, pun intended. But yeah,
say, that word had my eye twitching a little bit there.
Yeah. But yes, maybe we'll get a chance to talk about, I don't know, Northball or something at some point in the future, which is, I feel like it's lost its shine. Essendon Edge, that is the trend. Northball in the gutter, but they've been good. Like, at least they've been, yeah. Anyway, let's leave it at that. Joe, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to talk some Essendon with you and to review kind of how we've been going after, I guess, what we were looking for in the preseason and a surprising start to the year for Essendon.
100%. Thank you so much once again for coming on. Guys, if you liked what you had to hear or see here today, please drop us a like if you're new. A subscription would greatly help the growth of our channel. Hit that notification bell to not miss out on any of the videos and streams that we pump out on a regular basis. We are live every Monday night at 7:30 and every Thursday night at 5:30 for the drive home. We also do pump out a little bit of this, and in the second half of the season, we'll be probably doing some more general footy stuff because, as JD says, Supercoach is basically done and dusted at this point, and there's no point talking about that when the Bombers are on their way to win a final. So get around us. Thank you all so much. We'll see you all in the next one. Thanks again, JD.
Thanks, Joe. Peace all.